that the momentum was with her. And I think in part that was because of the huge crowds she was getting. I mean, I've been at almost all of these rallies in the last few days. She was pulling crowds of 20,000, 30,000 routinely in these final days. They felt that they were reaching all of those key demographics, that big, broad coalition that her campaign talked about so often, that they felt was going to really propel them across the finish line. We are not seeing that broad coalition at all showing up here tonight. In fact, quite the opposite. And there's going to be, I think, a lot of soul searching and a lot of questions in this campaign as to, what went wrong. That said, they are still, holding out hope. That's a very, somber Cedric Richmond there delivering that message. But as we heard from the campaign manager
Thank you. I want to bring in Arizona. You've been diving into the exit polls for Arizona specifically. What are they saying?
And virtually every possible metric, David, Trump is outperforming himself from 2020. When you talk about women, when you talk about Latinos, those without a college degree, senior citizens, and independent.
Of Arizona, we have another state to call, and this is a big one, Georgia. And as we heard from the Secretary of State earlier, forecasted this moment, 16 electoral votes going to former President Donald Trump. He wins the key state of Georgia. He lost it to President Biden 4 years ago by about 11,000 votes. He was determined to win that state back. He has done exactly that tonight.
Right now, the 538 chances, just based on these states, and that doesn't take into account the margin in the other states, an 80% chance of a Trump victory. And if you're just looking at the pure math right now, if you flip Pennsylvania to Trump, that's 270 electoral votes right there.
We kept the
Put
door
this back
open,
here,
and now we see that we have a situation where Philly's going to have to overperform, but there are red places that are still coming in Pennsylvania. In Wisconsin, Milwaukee will have to overperform. So, yeah, there may be a narrow path, but I don't know if I have my rosary beads on me.
Yeah,
Colin.
Right.
This is shaping up to be a really big night, obviously, for Donald Trump.
I do have one update, which is that we had expected to hear from Kamala Harris tonight. We now know a source telling us that is not going to happen. We do expect shortly Cedric Richmond, her senior advisor, to come before that watch party and tell everyone essentially to go.
We still have votes to count. We still have states that have not been called yet. We will continue overnight to fight to make sure that every vote is counted, that every voice has spoken. So you won't hear from the vice president tonight, but you will hear from her tomorrow. She will be back here tomorrow to address not only the HU family, not only to address her supporters, but to address the nation. So thank you. We believe in you. May God bless you. May God keep you. And go HU and go Harris. Thank you all.
Never an easy moment for whatever campaign has to make that announcement into how the campaign was feeling. And I know they thought this was going to be very close and still a challenge. Kamala Harris herself said repeatedly, we are the underdog here. But they did sense there was some wind, some momentum in these final days, did they not?
Kamala Harris herself said that the momentum was with her. And I think in part that was because of the huge crowds she was getting. I mean, I've been at almost all of these rallies in the last few days. She was pulling crowds of 20,000, 30,000 routinely in these final days. They felt that they were reaching all of those key demographics, that big, broad coalition that her campaign talked about so often, that they felt was going to really propel them across the finish line. We are not seeing that broad coalition at all showing up here tonight. In fact, quite the opposite. And there's going to be, I think, a lot of soul searching and a lot of questions in this campaign as to, what went wrong. That said, they are still, holding out hope. That's a very, somber Cedric Richmond there delivering that message. But as we heard from the campaign manager in this memo to the Harris team earlier tonight, stressing they expected this to be close. They do still see a path, but certainly not the path they were hoping to.
Wow, wow, wow. And the copium comes out. Going back to the false narrative is what this reporter host is trying to say. Oh, Kamala Harris said that the winds of the voters were behind her. The sails were just full of the wind of winning. She was drawing tens of thousands of people to her rallies in the final weeks. Yes, because why? Beyonce, lying about that she was going to perform, spoke for 4 minutes on abortion. Basically just KILLING, your babies. MURDER, your babies, your children. That's what that was about. That's why they came, and they were mad because they thought Beyonce was a free concert. And then it was what? Meg the horse, shaking her booty all over the place. And all the other actors and actresses and songwriters and singers that she had running around with Liz Cheney. Did she talk about the bussing in of people to most of her rallies? Tim Walz goes to rallies by himself. There's like 10, 15, 20 people there standing. Nobody's attending his rallies. How many buses did you have to see carting in literally hundreds and hundreds of people to her rallies? Sure, she had people attending her rallies when she had big name artists and Hollywood stars behind her to come and speak or to perform. This is what they leave out, the lies of omission, folks, the lies of omission. And then they finally called Georgia. Finally, they called Georgia. But they're still so reluctant to make the calls because they want to stretch this out as long as possible to make it look like that she's there fighting, that she has a fighting chance. When literally, I would say, when I looked at the numbers and others looked at the numbers, 9/9/30, you knew it was over. You knew it was over with the trends, folks. Anyways, grab some popcorn or your favorite chips, your favorite drink, sit back and relax because there's more meltdowns to occur here, folks, as we go into the wee hours on the Alternative Broadcasting Corporation or the Anything But Conservative ABC. More meltdowns. Watch these and just enjoy.
At this point,
The fact that Kamala Harris is going home tonight, I think, is amateur hour.
She's a coward.
You know, she has an obligation to speak. This pathway for her might be narrow, but it's also might be walking through the eye of a needle. She should say something to the people that adopted her as their nominee because they were just told by the president to do so. And she's leaving the country hanging now all night. And I think it's ridiculous and it's childish.
And while, you know, I'm not sitting here excited about the returns or the results. There's still a path. There's still a path.
Delusional.
We'll come back to all of you right after this.
Delusional
Our live coverage
Donna
continues here in a moment. A slim path, but a path continues.
Yeah, you're
Democratic
delusional,
officials
David.
are sounding very glum at this hour. There's about a 200,000 vote lead that the former president has. It might at this point be insurmountable. The economy, obviously.
But in the end, here we are. This is democracy.
We have a major call to make at this hour, and it's the power of the Senate moving forward. It's precisely what we've just been talking about in this conversation. Republicans will take control of the Senate with that call in Nebraska. Deb Fischer holding on to her seat tonight. If Donald Trump is named the next president, he will have a Republican Senate drilling down on Pennsylvania numbers to see if the math is even possible or how narrow the path is for Kamala Harris. Does it exist still?
Oh, look, anything's possible. It's
Anything's
just really
possible.
hard to see how you have to squint to see the path at this point. I think
we've also heard on Elon Musk's X platform from Mark Cuban, who of course was a very prominent surrogate and supporter of Kamala Harris. I interviewed him just over a week ago. He's saying, "Congrats, Donald Trump, you won fair and square." Again, we haven't called it yet, but that's a very
certainly
prominent,
not the message coming from the Kamala Harris campaign. Just to be clear, Mark Cuban may be a very, a top supporter of Kamala Harris, but their campaign is still insisting.
Just to be clear, okay, folks, Kamala's still going to win this thing. Just to be clear, he's not part of the Kamala Harris campaign. He's just a surrogate, a billionaire surrogate, but he's already congratulating, Donald Trump. But please, 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 Mark Cuban, you're going to make her lose.
They have a
What
slim
a dingbat
here.
But even they recognize that in kind of going dark tonight or going quiet, that they're opening up all of this sort of airtime and conversation to the real possibility that Donald Trump is going to return as president.
That's what it is.
Particularly given the mathematical path path here that we see ahead of us with the blue wall. I mean, there's no way around it. He's had a very impressive night, not only in the Sun Belt, but right through the blue wall states. And so in not giving any sort of more explanation from the Harris campaign, this is where the conversation's going to go.
And they know that. Look, they made a choice. Kamala Harris not coming out tonight to speak, likely because she didn't really know what to say. I mean, they still want to see the rest of these numbers come in. The last sort of official word from the Kamala Harris campaign is that they are.
That is so true with this politically intrepid reporter who happens to be just politically retarded. Probably said one of the true things tonight. Kamala Harris didn't know what to say pre-election. She certainly doesn't know what to say post-election, and especially losing election.
Waiting this out. They want to see, every last vote counted in these key states, but they are seeing exactly what we are seeing. This is certainly not the night they wanted and had hoped to have. Are they ready to come out and say that definitively? No.
All right. Former President Trump expected to speak at any moment, ready to call that state. There is still outstanding vote. And so let's get over to Rick Klein. That path is still extremely narrow for Kamala Harris. And if she were able to pull it off in Pennsylvania, she'd also then need Michigan and Wisconsin as well, where she's trailing in both states at this hour. Any new reporting from the Trump campaign?
Thanks. Waiting on him to come out to deliver what will be a victory speech. I mean, he's gonna declare victory. This, according again to one of his top advisors.
So obviously, we just have to make it clear that we haven't called it yet. We will definitely listen in and. That is the direction that this race is absolutely taking. And no matter how you look at this is a major night for Donald Trump across the map through all of the battlegrounds, even the ones that haven't been called yet. The turnout has been extraordinary.
Yeah, David, the crowd is cheering very loudly. That's because some other networks have projected the race for Donald Trump. Of course, we are still waiting on a few states to come through, but this is the cheering that we're hearing in the crowd, just adding to the anticipation of the former
any
president.
Numbers from Pennsylvania, Rick? Particularly
Not
Philadelphia?
really, David. We're waiting on Philly and waiting to see if we get a little bit more. It is just such a daunting math, and I've been clicking around on this board to try to find any way to piece together the votes. And look, there's always a hypothetical.
Anything. I'm trying to find any way.
3 or so points off of Joe Biden's.
So she did worse among women than Joe Biden?
Yeah.
I mean, that's an astounding.
Those are the final exit poll numbers, or are we going to have final numbers?
Oh, they'll be tweaked.
She did worse. She did worse with women than Joe Biden. Let me clean the ear out of my wax out of my ear. See, I can't even hear. She did worse with women than Joe Biden. What did we tell you, folks?
Taking it well into the morning.
Yeah, well into the morning.
She did 2 points worse than Joe Biden did in 2020 with the female voters.
Yeah, if that holds, that is really, we do have a... Here's the call of the night. We can project now that Pennsylvania, the biggest battleground prize of the night, will go to former President Donald Trump. ABC News can now project that Donald Trump has won the 19 electoral votes in the state of Pennsylvania. We had said for many weeks leading up to this election that this was a must-win state for both Kamala Harris and for Donald Trump. ABC News now projecting Donald Trump wins the state of Pennsylvania. That essentially gets him the presidency, although we have not called what he absolutely needs to get there, right? In place in so many words here.
That's exactly right. I mean, Alaska, very strong likelihood that he will win not only the Electoral College, but also the popular vote.
And that's really going to matter, John Carl, to the former president.
I mean, absolutely.
So finally, folks, Alternative Broadcasting Corporation, anything but conservative ABC, finally, in the wee hours of the morning, calls Pennsylvania the projected winner. Finally. But still, since he's a few votes shy, they say they can't officially call he's the presidency yet. They can't do that yet. They still have to take a look at the projections from the other states, even though a few other networks have already called it. But ABC, because they have to do their job, they have to do all the intricate details, calculating everything out perfectly. They want to be absolutely 1,000% sure that Donald Trump has won the presidency. They could have called this literally 9:30, 10 o'clock for Trump. The trends were there. But they didn't want to do it. We did, and we were right, and they took too long. Anyways, folks, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasser Sheikh Show. I've been your host. My name is Dr. Nasser. If you haven't done so already, you all know what to do. Subscribe, share, like, follow. We'd love you to do that. Comments below. What'd you think of the meltdown of ABC? My final thought is always, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, y'all take care and stay safe.